What if Kyle Richards' most painful moments weren't just reality TV drama, but a business strategy? That's the explosive question behind the latest allegations surrounding Andy Cohen, Bravo, and RHOBH. According to the transcript provided for the story, Kyle is portrayed as believing that her emotional breakdowns were being treated as valuable television content while people behind the scenes allegedly knew more about the chaos surrounding her personal life. The source even claims that a secret recording allegedly captured a producer discussing Kyle's emotional reaction as something that could benefit the show. But here's the part that makes this story especially explosive. The transcript claims an alleged recording involving Andy Cohen exists, with a statement supposedly suggesting that Kyle's breakdown could become Emmy-worthy television. Now, those are allegations from the supplied transcript, not independently authenticated evidence. Still, the question is impossible to ignore. If such a recording were ever proven authentic, what would it mean for RHOBH? Did producers allegedly see Kyle's pain as ratings gold? Was the emotional chaos being encouraged rather than simply documented? And could Kyle's alleged collection of recordings finally expose what viewers were never supposed to hear? Because this isn't just another Beverly Hills feud. It's a question about where reality television ends and exploitation allegedly begins. And the deeper we go, the more uncomfortable this story becomes. The alleged secret tape changes the entire way fans could look at Kyle Richards' RHOBH journey. According to the supplied transcript, Kyle was allegedly not only dealing with personal heartbreak, but also beginning to believe that the people producing the show may have viewed her emotional suffering as valuable television. The source claims that producers allegedly knew about the situation surrounding Dorit and Mauricio and were supposedly more interested in preserving the dramatic reveal than protecting Kyle from additional emotional damage. That is a massive allegation. And that distinction is exactly what makes the alleged recording so explosive. The transcript claims Kyle had supposedly been collecting material for months, including secret audio recordings, producer conversations, messages, and footage that was allegedly never intended for public release. But let's be very clear. The supplied transcript describes these materials as alleged evidence. It does not independently authenticate the recordings or establish that the conversations actually happened. Still, the allegation creates a disturbing question. What if Kyle's most emotional moments were allegedly being discussed as television opportunities behind closed doors? For viewers, a breakdown can look spontaneous. A woman cries. Her voice shakes. She struggles to speak. The cameras stay close. Music rises. The scene becomes the centerpiece of an episode. But what viewers don't see is everything happening behind the camera. What did producers say afterward? What conversations happened in the control room? Were people worried about Kyle as a person, or were they thinking about the episode? The transcript suggests Kyle eventually became suspicious of exactly that. And that alleged realization could explain why her anger turned toward Bravo. The source claims Kyle allegedly accused the network of watching her struggle while supposedly knowing information that she herself had not been told. If that accusation were ever supported by credible evidence, it would raise serious questions about the boundaries of reality television. Because Kyle wasn't playing a fictional character. She was supposedly dealing with her real marriage, her real friendships, her real emotions. And according to the narrative, she was allegedly expected to continue filming while people around her supposedly knew something enormous. That is where the phrase in the title, "Our money," becomes so provocative. The idea suggests that someone's emotional pain was allegedly being viewed through a financial lens. Ratings, audience engagement, advertising, social media attention, a dramatic reunion, a viral clip. That is the business model surrounding reality television. But if the allegation is that producers deliberately encouraged or protected circumstances simply to create a bigger breakdown, the ethical question becomes unavoidable. How far is too far? The transcript claims one alleged recording involved a producer supposedly saying that if Kyle discovered the alleged pregnancy before the reunion, the season would be ruined. Again, that recording has not been independently authenticated in the supplied material. But imagine if it were real. That single conversation could completely change the narrative. Instead of Kyle's breakdown being an unexpected consequence of reality television, it could potentially appear to have been something producers anticipated. And that would be devastating, because Kyle's pain would no longer be merely part of the story. It would allegedly become the story. That is why the alleged Andy Cohen recording is so important. The transcript claims Kyle supposedly possessed audio in which Andy allegedly discussed keeping information from Kyle until the reunion because her emotional reaction could make compelling television. And they should remain allegations unless credible evidence confirms them. But they raise a question every reality TV fan understands. Does the audience have the right to see everything simply because a star agreed to be filmed? Kyle's answer, according to the transcript, appears to be no. She allegedly believed there was a difference between agreeing to reality television and agreeing to be manipulated. And if she truly felt that distinction had been crossed, her alleged decision to collect evidence becomes much easier to understand. She wasn't supposedly collecting receipts just to attack Mauricio. She was allegedly collecting receipts because she wanted to understand what happened to her. Who knew? Who stayed silent? Who made decisions? Who benefited? Those questions could become more damaging than the original relationship allegations. Friendships can collapse. Cast members can leave. But if viewers begin believing that the production process itself deliberately manufactures emotional suffering, the problem becomes much larger than one season of RHOBH. It becomes a question about the entire reality TV industry. And that is why the alleged secret tape has become the centerpiece of this story. Not because a recording automatically proves anything. It doesn't. But because an authentic recording could potentially provide something that rumors cannot. Context. Until that alleged recording is publicly produced and independently authenticated, viewers should keep that distinction in mind. But if Kyle really does have the material described in the transcript, the biggest question may not be whether she'll release it. It may be whether Bravo can survive the conversation that follows. Because once the audience starts asking whether Kyle's pain was allegedly treated as entertainment, every emotional moment becomes fair game for re-examination. And suddenly, the cameras aren't the only thing under scrutiny. The people behind them are too. But if the alleged recording is real, the biggest problem may not be what was said. It may be why anyone would say it in the first place. According to the supplied transcript, Kyle allegedly began believing that her most painful moments were being treated as valuable television while she was struggling to understand what was happening in her personal life. The source claims producers allegedly knew about the situation involving Dorit and Mauricio and were supposedly interested in saving the revelation for a major reunion moment. Because viewers may see tears and think they are watching an authentic moment of heartbreak. But the transcript asks us to consider another possibility. What if people behind the scenes allegedly knew something that Kyle didn't? What if they were waiting? What if the bigger the emotional reaction, the more valuable the episode became? Again, these are allegations presented by the supplied transcript. The alleged recordings and conversations have not been independently authenticated in the source. But the question itself is powerful. Reality television has always depended on emotional moments. Producers need conflict, tension, surprises, and dramatic reveals. That is what keeps audiences watching. But there is an enormous ethical difference between capturing drama that naturally happens and allegedly withholding information because someone's eventual reaction might produce better television. That is the line this story keeps circling. The transcript claims Kyle allegedly felt she had been used as an emotional punching bag after years of appearing on RHOBH. And if that was genuinely how she felt, her anger would make sense. She had allegedly given the franchise years of her personal life, her marriage, her friendships, her family conflicts, her emotional struggles. And now she was supposedly questioning whether the same platform she helped build had protected her, or simply benefited from her pain. That is a brutal realization. And it could explain why Kyle allegedly stopped thinking like a cast member and started thinking like someone preparing to leave. The transcript claims she allegedly began collecting information for months. Not just one conversation. Not just one message. The source describes recordings, texts, producer meetings, and unreleased footage. If even some of that material exists, the potential impact is enormous.
Imagine an unreleased conversation suddenly appearing online.
Fans would dissect every sentence. Who was present? When was it recorded? What was being discussed? Was Kyle mentioned? Was the alleged pregnancy mentioned? Was the reunion being planned around a specific emotional reaction? Those questions could dominate RHOBH coverage for weeks. But there is another side to this. Secret recordings can also be misleading without context. A short clip can sound completely different from a full conversation. A statement can be taken out of context. A private joke can be interpreted as something serious. That is why the alleged tape would need authentication and full context before anyone could reasonably conclude that it proves wrongdoing. Still, the transcript presents Kyle as someone who allegedly believes she has been collecting exactly that kind of material. And then the story reaches Andy Cohen. According to the source, Kyle allegedly possessed an audio recording in which Andy supposedly discussed keeping information away from Kyle until the reunion because her reaction could become major television. That is perhaps the single most explosive allegation in the entire narrative. Because if authentic, it would suggest a very different relationship between Kyle and the production team. She wouldn't simply be a participant. She would potentially be the person being strategically kept in the dark. And that would raise serious questions about consent, trust, and editorial ethics. That doesn't make the story uninteresting. It makes the next step even more important. Because now the audience is waiting for one thing: the tape. Not another anonymous source. Not another dramatic headline. Not another social media theory. The actual recording. If it surfaces, people can listen. If it doesn't, the allegations remain allegations. And that is exactly where Kyle's alleged battle becomes so fascinating. The source claims she was allegedly preparing to release a documentary-style project featuring material Bravo supposedly never wanted viewers to see. Whether that project exists remains unestablished by the supplied source. But the threat alone creates enormous suspense. Because Kyle allegedly spent years allowing RHOBH to tell parts of her story. Now she may want to tell the story herself. And if her version includes allegations about what happened behind the cameras, Bravo could find itself facing a battle it cannot solve with another reunion. The audience would be asking a much harder question. Were we watching Kyle's life? Or were we watching a production built around her pain? That question could linger long after the cameras stop rolling. And if the alleged tape ever becomes public, it could be the moment when that question finally gets an answer. And this is where the alleged secret tape could become the most damaging part of the entire story. According to the supplied transcript, Kyle allegedly believed that people behind RHOBH had been watching her emotional struggles while knowing information she supposedly didn't know. The source claims this made Kyle question whether her breakdowns were being documented naturally or allegedly treated as opportunities for bigger television moments. That distinction is enormous. Because Kyle's emotions weren't fictional. She was allegedly dealing with the collapse of her marriage while millions of people watched. If producers were supposedly discussing her reaction before she even knew what was happening, Kyle could reasonably feel betrayed. The transcript claims Kyle allegedly confronted the production side and accused them of watching her suffer while remaining silent. But again, these are allegations from the supplied transcript. The alleged tape itself has not been independently authenticated. Still, the story raises a fascinating question about reality television. When someone signs up to have cameras follow their life, where does consent end? Does agreeing to film mean agreeing to every surprise? Does a producer have the right to save information for dramatic television? And when the person involved is genuinely emotionally devastated, should ratings even matter? Those questions could become central if the alleged recording ever surfaces. The transcript claims the supposed recording involving Andy Cohen suggested that Kyle should not be told about the alleged pregnancy before the reunion because her eventual reaction could become major television. If authentic, that would be an explosive claim. But without the actual recording and independent authentication, it remains just that, a claim. And that is why the alleged tape has become such a powerful cliffhanger. Everyone wants to hear it. Everyone wants to know what was actually said. Everyone wants to know whether Kyle really was being kept in the dark. And everyone wants to know whether the people behind RHOBH were simply documenting chaos or allegedly helping manufacture it. That uncertainty is what keeps the controversy alive. Because Kyle has reportedly spent years inside this system. She knows how television works. She knows what makes an episode compelling. And according to the transcript, she allegedly knows that emotional moments can become the most valuable scenes of a season. Now, imagine her realizing that her own pain may have been viewed through that same lens. That could explain why she allegedly decided to collect evidence rather than simply walk away. If the transcript is correct about her alleged recordings, Kyle may have been trying to preserve the conversations that happened when she believed nobody was watching. And those conversations could potentially tell a very different story from what appeared on television. But until the material is released, viewers have to resist the temptation to treat rumors as proof. Because the internet can turn one allegation into a fact within hours. A dramatic headline can spread faster than a correction. A supposed leaked tape can be discussed for days before anyone even knows whether it is genuine. That is why the alleged recording should ultimately be judged by evidence, context, and authenticity. Still, the emotional question remains. If Kyle really believed her pain was being used, can anyone blame her for wanting out? Maybe leaving RHOBH isn't revenge. Maybe it's her way of taking back control. And perhaps that is the real story underneath all the accusations. Kyle allegedly spent years allowing viewers into her life. Now, she may be saying that there are limits to what she is willing to give. And if she truly has recordings that could explain what happened behind the cameras, fans will be waiting. Because the next chapter won't be decided by another rumor. It will be decided by what Kyle can actually prove. But the deeper this alleged scandal goes, the more the focus shifts away from Kyle's marriage and toward the people controlling the cameras. According to the supplied transcript, Kyle allegedly believed that her emotional breakdowns had become valuable television moments while producers supposedly knew information she did not. The source claims she felt exploited after years of putting her private life in front of the RHOBH audience. And that accusation could potentially damage the relationship between Kyle and Bravo far more than any cast feud. Think about the power imbalance. The network has cameras. The network has editors. The network controls the episodes. The network organizes the reunion. But Kyle allegedly had something different, her own memories and, according to the transcript, recordings she supposedly collected over months. That creates an entirely different confrontation. If Kyle believed the public version of her story was incomplete, she could potentially challenge it with material from behind the scenes. But there is an important warning here. The transcript does not independently authenticate these recordings or establish that the alleged conversations actually happened. Where is the tape? Until an alleged recording is produced, authenticated, and examined in full context, nobody can responsibly say that it proves Andy Cohen or Bravo did anything wrong. But the allegation itself has already created a powerful narrative. The transcript claims Kyle allegedly wanted viewers to hear conversations that were never intended for television. If that ever happened, fans would immediately begin asking whether other reality TV moments had also been shaped differently behind the scenes. And that could create a much bigger conversation. Because this story isn't really about one dramatic scene anymore. It's about the relationship between reality stars and the production machine. How much should producers manipulate? How much should they reveal? How much should they hide? And at what point does creating compelling television allegedly become exploiting someone's genuine emotional pain? Those questions have no simple answers. Reality shows need drama. But the people experiencing that drama are still human beings. And that is why Kyle's alleged reaction matters. The transcript portrays her as someone who had spent years trying to hold everything together before finally becoming furious about what she believed had happened. If she truly felt that her breakdown was being treated as entertainment rather than a genuine crisis, leaving RHOBH could be less about revenge and more about reclaiming control. That could also explain why the alleged documentary idea is so important. Instead of letting Bravo decide what viewers see, Kyle could theoretically tell the story herself. But there is a major risk. Once accusations become public, every person named can respond. Every recording can be challenged. Every message can be questioned. Every clip can be interpreted differently. And suddenly, Kyle could find herself in another cycle of headlines she was allegedly trying to escape. That is why the alleged tape would need to be examined carefully. A short recording can never tell the entire story by itself. Context matters. Timing matters. Authenticity matters. And most importantly, evidence matters. Still, if the alleged tape ever emerges and contains exactly what the transcript claims, the reaction could be enormous. Fans would demand answers. Bravo would likely face intense scrutiny. Andy Cohen could be asked to respond directly. And Kyle would suddenly have something far more powerful than another emotional reunion moment. She would have the ability to challenge the narrative from outside the show. That is the real power behind this alleged scandal. Kyle may no longer be asking Bravo to tell her story. She may be preparing to tell it herself. And if that happens, the question won't simply be whether Kyle Richards is leaving RHOBH. The question will be whether RHOBH can continue telling its stories the same way after Kyle allegedly decides to reveal what she believes happened behind the cameras. Because once viewers start questioning the people holding the cameras, the entire reality TV illusion begins to look different. And now we arrive at the question that could determine whether this alleged scandal disappears or becomes something much bigger. What happens if Kyle Richards actually releases the alleged receipts? According to the supplied transcript, Kyle was allegedly preparing to expose material she believed showed what happened behind the scenes, including recordings, messages, and unreleased footage. But those materials have not been independently authenticated in the source. That means the audience is still waiting for something concrete. Because until the alleged tape appears, there are really two separate stories. There is the dramatic story being told through allegations. And then there is the evidence that would either support or challenge those allegations. That distinction is critical. If an authentic recording eventually surfaced, viewers would immediately want to know the full context. Who was speaking? When was it recorded? What was happening before and after the clip? Was the audio edited? Could the voices be authenticated? Was the conversation actually about Kyle? Because one explosive sentence can create headlines, but only context can explain what really happened. And that is why the alleged Andy Cohen tape remains such a powerful cliffhanger. The transcript claims the recording supposedly captured Andy discussing the alleged situation before the reunion and treating Kyle's potential reaction as valuable television. If authentic and presented in full context, that could raise serious questions about production ethics. But until then, nobody should treat the allegation as established fact. Still, the bigger issue goes beyond Andy. It goes to the entire reality TV business. Millions of viewers watch these shows because they believe they are seeing real emotions, real arguments, real relationships, real consequences. But there is always a production team shaping the experience. Cameras are positioned.
Questions are asked.
Scenes are edited. Storylines are constructed. Music is added. Episodes are assembled. That doesn't automatically mean the emotions are fake. But it does mean there is a complicated relationship between reality and entertainment. Kyle's alleged conflict exposes that tension perfectly. If she genuinely believes her emotional suffering was deliberately used to create television, then leaving RHOBH could be her way of drawing a boundary. And perhaps that is the most important part of the entire story. She may not be trying to destroy the show. She may simply be refusing to let the show define her anymore. After years of being filmed, questioned, analyzed, criticized, and discussed, Kyle could finally decide that some parts of her life belong only to her. That would be a powerful ending. But the transcript suggests she may not be ready for silence just yet. The source claims Kyle allegedly told Bravo that she would not remain quiet and that she was prepared to release material she believed would expose what happened behind the cameras. Again, that claim requires evidence. But if she follows through, the fallout could reach far beyond one season. It could affect how fans view old episodes. It could change how cast members discuss production. It could create new questions about reunion decisions. And it could put even more pressure on Bravo to respond. That is why the alleged tape is bigger than gossip. It represents the possibility of a completely different version of the story. And there is one final twist. What if Kyle ultimately decides not to release anything? What if she realizes that exposing every secret would only keep her trapped inside the same world she is trying to escape? In that case, silence could become her strongest weapon. She could walk away, rebuild, move forward, and let the audience decide what they believe. Either way, the alleged controversy has already raised a fascinating question. Who controls the story when the reality star decides to stop cooperating with the machine? For years, Rob had the cameras. Now, according to the transcript, Kyle may believe she has the receipts. Whether those receipts are real, what they contain, and whether they will ever become public remain unanswered. But one thing is certain. The moment an audience starts asking what happens behind the camera, the people behind the camera become part of the story. And that may be the most uncomfortable chapter of all. At this point, the biggest question surrounding Kyle Richards isn't whether she was emotional. It's whether the alleged behind-the-scenes story changes how viewers should understand everything they watched. According to the supplied transcript, Kyle allegedly believed that people connected to Rob knew about the situation involving Mauricio and Dorrit while she was still struggling publicly with her marriage. The source claims she eventually became furious because she felt her emotional pain had allegedly become valuable television. But it is still an allegation. The supplied transcript describes secret recordings and conversations, yet the actual alleged tape has not been independently authenticated within the material provided. And that means the most important thing now is evidence. If Kyle truly has the recordings described in the transcript, releasing them could potentially change the entire conversation. But she would also have to deal with the consequences. Once private conversations become public, there is no easy way to put them back. Every sentence would be analyzed. Every voice would be questioned. Every timestamp would matter. Every person mentioned could respond. And the public would immediately begin comparing the alleged recordings with what appeared on RHOBH. That could create an enormous media storm. But perhaps Kyle's real goal isn't to destroy anyone. Perhaps she simply wants to explain why she allegedly felt betrayed. Marriage problems, friendship drama, family pressure, emotional breakdowns. Everything became part of the public conversation. And eventually, according to the source, Kyle allegedly reached the point where she questioned whether continuing was worth the cost. That makes her alleged exit much more meaningful. She could simply be finished. Finished with the cameras. Finished with the speculation. Finished with defending herself. Finished with allowing strangers to debate every detail of her private life. And if that is the case, walking away might actually be the healthiest move for her public image. But there is still the alleged tape. That mysterious recording remains the biggest unanswered question. The transcript claims it could contain a conversation involving Andy Cohen and producers discussing Kyle's potential reaction to the alleged pregnancy revelation. If such a recording exists and is authenticated, it could raise serious questions about how the reunion was handled. If it doesn't exist, or if the context turns out to be completely different, the story could change just as dramatically. That is why nobody should rush to judgment. The internet loves a scandal. It loves a secret tape. It loves a villain. And it loves a dramatic headline. But real evidence is what separates a viral allegation from a meaningful revelation. So for now, the biggest unanswered questions remain. Did Kyle actually record the conversations described in the transcript? Does the alleged Andy Cohen tape exist? Was Kyle supposedly kept unaware of important information? And was her emotional reaction really treated as television value? Those questions cannot be answered simply by repeating the allegations. They require evidence. And that may be why Kyle's next move is so important. If she speaks, everyone will listen. If she releases evidence, everyone will analyze it. If she walks away silently, fans will still speculate. But whatever happens, the conversation has already raised a much bigger issue about reality television. When viewers watch someone break down on camera, they see a dramatic moment. But behind that moment are producers, editors, executives, and decisions the audience may never see. Kyle's alleged story forces us to ask whether there is a line between documenting reality and creating television from someone's pain. And that is the question that could outlive every rumor about Mauricio, Dorrit, or even Andy. Because if Kyle really believes her breakdown was treated as a business opportunity, then leaving Rob may not be an act of defeat. It may be an act of control. She gets to decide what happens next. She gets to decide what she reveals. And she gets to decide whether her next chapter happens in front of cameras or far away from them. For now, the alleged tape remains just that, an allegation described in the supplied transcript. But if credible evidence ever emerges, this story could become much bigger than one explosive reunion. It could become a conversation about the price of reality television and who ultimately pays it. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think Kyle Richards has every right to walk away after everything described in this story? And if the alleged Andy Cohen recording ever surfaces, should Kyle release it publicly or leave the entire Rob drama behind? The claims about secret recordings, production decisions, and Kyle's emotional breakdown come from the supplied transcript and have not been independently authenticated. Drop your opinion below. Team Kyle or wait for the tape? If this story shocked you, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because if those alleged receipts ever surface, the next chapter could be even bigger, and Beverly Hills may have a lot of explaining to do.